The drama surrounding Gabi Garcia is unlike anything the combat sports world has ever witnessed. She is not simply a fighter. She is a force of nature that defies every conventional expectation placed upon athletes, women, and human beings in general. Standing at an imposing height with a frame that looks more sculpted by mythology than biology, Garcia has carved out a legacy so singular and so ferocious that even seasoned veterans of the sport struggle to find the words to describe what they are watching when she steps into the ring. This is the story of a woman who did not just break barriers, she demolished them, ground them into dust, and walked through the smoke without flinching. Garcia's origin story reads less like a typical athletic biography and more like the opening chapter of a comic book. As a child, she was guided toward conventional sports like volleyball and handball, the kinds of activities society tends to point large, physically gifted young girls toward. But Garcia had a different hunger. Something in her recognized that her body was not built for games played with balls and nets. It was built for something rawer, more direct, and far more primal. She found jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu, in turn, found its most dominant practitioner. With a physical presence that overwhelmed training partners and competitors alike, she ascended through the ranks of the grappling world with a terrifying consistency, eventually claiming 9 world championship titles. 9. That number alone should be enough to silence any skeptic. But Garcia was far from finished. In 2015, having exhausted the competition in submission grappling, Garcia made the logical next step for someone of her temperament and ability. She entered the world of MMA. Her debut came against Lade Tapa, a fighter known by the ominous nickname the Barbarian. The matchup on paper already seemed unfair, and when the bell rang, reality proved no more balanced. Garcia exploded across the canvas with the kind of forward pressure that belongs in nature documentaries, the sort of charge that reminds you that at the base of all athletic competition lies something deeply instinctual and undomesticated. She swarmed her opponent with power shots, dragged the fight into grappling exchanges, and finished the contest with the clinical brutality of someone who had been doing this their entire life. The Barbarian had met something worse. What followed next became one of the most talked about and controversial bouts in recent combat sports history. Garcia was matched against an elderly Japanese fighter, a woman whose age alone made the pairing almost incomprehensible to outside observers. The spectacle generated enormous attention, and not all of it was flattering. But Garcia entered the ring the same way she always does, utterly focused, physically dominant, and entirely indifferent to public opinion. The fight was precisely what anyone with eyes could have predicted. Garcia overwhelmed her opponent with thunderous knees and relentless ground and pound, finishing the bout with the kind of controlled violence that speaks to years of disciplined training. The aftermath, however, grew even more dramatic when her fallen opponent apparently attempted to escalate tensions after the stoppage, an act that only added another surreal layer to Garcia's growing mythology. Her next appearance in Japan brought another opponent, another dominant performance, and ultimately another controversy. Garcia dispatched her challenger with high kicks and devastating striking combinations before finishing the fight in a manner that the organization deemed a violation of the rules. She was banned from competing in Japan. Rather than apologizing or softening her approach, Garcia simply moved on, entirely unbothered, because that is precisely who she is. With women increasingly reluctant to share a ring with her, Garcia made a decision that shook the entire combat sports community to its foundation. She agreed to compete against a man, not just any man, but Craig Jones, a decorated and highly respected grappler with genuine world-class credentials. The lead-up to the bout was electric with tension. At the face-off, Jones tested the atmosphere with a bold move of his own, seemingly unable to resist the theater of the moment. The fight itself was a genuine spectacle. Garcia brought everything she had: elite jiu-jitsu, physical power, and an aggression that filled the arena with an almost palpable electricity. Jones, for his part, fought smart and eventually locked in a rear-naked choke that Garcia could not escape. She tapped. For the first time, the world had seen Garcia's limits, and the result only deepened the conversation around her legacy rather than diminishing it. She had stepped into entirely uncharted territory, fought a world-class male grappler in a professional context, and pushed him to the absolute edge of his abilities. Far from retreating after that defeat, Garcia returned to MMA with even greater ferocity. She dismantled Barbara Nepomus with jackhammer strikes before transitioning seamlessly to the ground and wrenching her opponent's arm into submission. The message was clear. Garcia had processed the loss, recalibrated, and come back sharper. Then came arguably her most credible test inside the MMA cage, a showdown with Danny Yarrow, the first opponent in Garcia's career who came close to matching her in terms of sheer physical presence. The fight resembled a collision between tectonic plates. Garcia muscled the contest to the ground, established dominant positions, and ground out a performance that once again left no doubt about who the most feared woman in the sport truly is. Gabi Garcia is, in every meaningful sense, a phenomenon that combat sports was not entirely prepared for. She has redefined what is possible for a female athlete in terms of physicality, dominance, and sheer force of will. She has fought men, fought grandmothers, fought champions, and fought skeptics, and she has done all of it on her own unapologetic terms. Now the question is thrown to you. Who do you think could realistically challenge Gabi Garcia inside the ring? Is there a woman alive today with the physical tools and mental fortitude to take her down? And what did you make of the intergender fight against Craig Jones? Should bouts like that happen more often in combat sports? Or does it cross a line? Drop your answer in the comments below because this is a conversation worth having. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story this wild.